I'm so big now I can hardly move. All I can do on my own is scooch to the edge of my bed, go to the bathroom, and see if my mom's awake.
Transformation doesn't end when the cameras stop rolling. Between 2012 and 2015, My 600-Pound Life documented the struggles of patients from seasons 1 through seasons 4 as they fought for their lives through weight loss surgery.
Being this overweight, everything I do is hard and it's a struggle. Things are so hard for me. I've lost motivation to do anything for myself.
But surgery was just the beginning of a much longer journey. Now, years later, we return to find out what happened next. Some found freedom they never imagined possible. Others faced battles that proved far more complicated than weight loss alone. This is a Where Are They Now special for My 600-Pound Life, seasons 1 through 4. And we'll start with Melissa, whose change began quietly, long before anyone could see it. Season 1, Melissa Morris. When My 600-Pound Life first premiered in early 2012, the world met Melissa Morris. At that point, viewers were seeing the result of a journey that had already unfolded for 7 years. The cameras followed her in Livingston, Texas, where she had moved with her husband Chris, and captured what life looked like at over 650 pounds. She relied heavily on her husband for even the most basic tasks. Her turning point came after a devastating weigh-in in 2005, when she realized that she could no longer pretend things weren't getting worse. Meeting Dr. Now that same year gave her a path forward, but she also confronted internal struggles that surgery alone couldn't fix. Over the next several years, Melissa lost around 500 pounds, eventually reaching a weight as low as the low 200s. She learned to walk independently and returned to everyday routines. One of the most meaningful milestones during her progress was becoming pregnant for the first time in 2010, something she once feared might never happen. The show followed her through that period, focusing on how she tried to balance recovery with the demands of a changing body. As her life began to expand following the airing of her episode in 2012, the strain on her marriage became more visible. The changes that brought her new independence also shifted the dynamics at home, and she and Chris eventually separated sometime after her 2018 follow-up episode. It was a painful transition that happened away from the cameras, and Melissa later shared that rebuilding her life as a single parent came with challenges she hadn't expected. In the years since, Melissa has continued to reshape what success looks like. Public updates describe her working in a support capacity connected to Dr. Now's practice and serving as a longtime sponsor and advocate for Weight Watchers. Today, she continues working toward balance, focusing less on numbers and more on being present for her family, especially her 3 children. She occasionally shares updates with viewers and offers encouragement to others. Ashley Randall. Ashley Randall entered the program at just 24 years old in 2004, years before her story finally aired on television in 2012, making her one of the youngest patients in the show's early seasons. At 617 pounds, she was completely dependent on her parents for daily care. Food controlled her life, and independence felt out of reach. After qualifying for weight loss surgery, Ashley's progress came slowly. 1 full year after surgery, Ashley still had only lost about 130 pounds. Over time, however, she did move forward. She qualified for 2 skin removal surgeries, returned to school after dropping out because of her weight, and gradually built independence away from her parents. The progress was uneven, and maintaining strict lifestyle changes remained a constant battle. That battle grew all the more challenging in 2011 during the 7th year of filming, when Ashley lost her father to cancer. By the end of that 7-year journey captured in her original episode, Ashley had reached 253 pounds. By the time Ashley returned in 2015 for My 600-Pound Life, Where Are They Now?, her story had shifted dramatically. She had regained about 75 pounds and was no longer actively enrolled in Dr. Now's program. The follow-up episode focused less on numbers and more on grief. After Ashley's father passed away, the emotional toll disrupted her ability to stay disciplined. The episode ended with Ashley trying to find new motivation and recommit to the program. After the follow-up, Ashley stepped away from the public eye. She remained close to her family in Texas and faced ongoing health challenges. Tragically, Ashley passed away on October 2, 2021 at age 40. Sources list complications from sepsis and pneumonia as contributing factors. But beyond the medical notes, what remains is the memory of her determination and the resilience she showed through her journey. Season 2, Zsalynn Whitworth. Zsalynn Whitworth first appeared on My 600-Pound Life in 2014 at age 42. In public, she was once part of a community that celebrated size and encouraged confidence at any weight. But at home, the reality was much harder to live with. Nearly 600 pounds and exhausted by even the smallest effort, she struggled to walk through a park gate with her daughter or stand long enough to prepare a meal. The emotional conflict in Zsalynn's story didn't come from denial. It came from loyalty. Her husband preferred her heavier and made that clear in ways that slowly chipped away at her confidence. Zsalynn entered Dr. Now's program years before her episode aired in 2014, and it was there that she ultimately underwent gastric bypass surgery. Over time, the weight came off, her mobility improved, and the changes became impossible to ignore. By 2016, she underwent excess skin removal surgery, having lost more than 300 pounds. Over time, she and her husband separated, not out of anger, but out of the need to create an environment where she could stay healthy without being pulled backward. While the exact year of the divorce isn't publicly documented, the separation marked a powerful shift. Local coverage notes that she continues to focus on daily routines with her daughter and occasionally shares updates online. Her recent posts show a life that looks completely different. If you want to see more updates like this, make sure to subscribe to Living Large, because the next stories take a very different turn. Penny Saeger. At 45 years old, Penny Saeger was living almost entirely from her bed in Elkton, Maryland. Viewers first met her in Season 2, Episode 3, which aired in early 2014. At the time, she weighed about 530 pounds and relied on her husband Edgar and their young son for nearly every part of daily life. Viewers remembered her story not just because of her limited mobility, but because she insisted she was following Dr. Now's plan, even as the scale showed almost no change. This dynamic made her episode one of the most debated in the early seasons. When Dr. Now confronted her about lack of progress, their discussions became tense. She disagreed with his recommendations and continued to believe she was improving, even when medical evidence suggested otherwise. In her 2015 Where Are They Now follow-up, Penny had surgery and lost some weight, but remained largely bedbound, with progress that stayed limited over time. Edgar shouldered much of the caregiving, and scenes involving him and their son struck viewers because of how much responsibility fell on him. Later reports describe a serious medical crisis and prolonged hospitalization, though details remain private. And updates since then have been scarce. As of 2025, credible sources state she is alive, but living very privately. There are no verified recent photos, no obituaries from reputable outlets, and no confirmation of her passing, despite the rumors that periodically circulate online. Chuck Turner. When viewers first met 45-year-old Chuck Turner in his 2014 episode, he was nearly 700 pounds and struggling under the weight of more than his body could carry. Much of his day unfolded around immobility, relying on his wife Nissa for everything. This left her feeling less like a spouse and more like a full-time caregiver. But underneath the caregiver dynamic was a deeper wound. Years before filming, back in 2006, Chuck's first wife had been murdered. The grief shattered him. Food became his way to numb the loss, and the weight crept upward. His introduction to Dr. Now during the lead-up to his debut episode was filled with worry but also determination. After qualifying for surgery during that period, Chuck pushed through pain and fear to follow the program, and the results came quickly. Yet the surgery didn't magically fix the deeper issues. As the months went on, tension between him and Nyssa intensified. Eventually, despite his progress, the relationship collapsed. And by the time of his 2015 Where Are They Now follow-up, Chuck found himself facing the one outcome he feared most: losing his family, even as he lost the weight. But what followed marked one of the most remarkable comebacks in the series. Chuck didn't spiral. Instead, he rebuilt his life from the ground up. He moved out, found a new home, focused on work, and kept pushing through physical therapy. His weight continued to drop. He lost over 400 pounds in total by the end of his televised journey, and his mobility transformed. He regained independence, stepped into a gym, and even started expanding his towing business. In time, he found love again. Updates from his follow-up show he remarried to his wife, Erica. And unlike his earlier journey, this chapter was built on balance, taking care of himself so he could show up for someone else. According to 2025 reports, he remains alive, working, and maintaining much of his weight loss. Christina Phillips. Christina Phillips first appeared back in 2014, but even then, it was clear her struggle had begun long before the cameras arrived. At just 22, her world had narrowed to a space inside her home in South Haven, Mississippi. Moving even a few steps left her gasping, and the fear of collapsing kept her close to the walls and the furniture for balance. Her family tried to protect her by stepping in whenever she struggled, but what began as support eventually made it harder for her to stay mobile. During her first consultation in Houston, Dr. Now showed concern not just for her health, but for how much her dependence was reinforced at home. He asked her to lose weight before surgery to prove she could make changes on her own. As the months passed, Christina worked towards surgery and began walking more often, slowly rebuilding the strength she had lost. After she underwent gastric bypass surgery, as seen on her episode of My 600-Pound Life, the changes came quickly. She started driving again, running errands on her own, and eventually made the difficult decision to leave her marriage so she could focus on her independence. However, Christina reached a stage many patients never expect. When she returned for evaluation in 2015, Dr. Now told her she needed to gain weight before he could safely approve another skin removal surgery. Today, Christina is widely recognized as one of the show's most successful long-term transformations. She has lost more than 500 pounds and is now raising a family, sharing occasional updates while keeping much of her life private. Her journey shows that recovery is not only about losing weight, but about learning how to live without the patterns that once felt necessary for survival. Before we move on, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss future updates like these. Season 3, Amber Rachdi. Viewers first met Amber Rachdi in 2015 on the Season 3 premiere of My 600-Pound Life. But for her, the struggle had been shaping her life since childhood. At 23 years old and nearly 658 pounds, she lived with her parents in Troutdale, Oregon. Food was the one predictable comfort Amber had. But soon that comfort had become a prison. One that left her unable to bathe alone, stand without pain, or imagine a future beyond the walls of her parents' home. The turning point came around 2014 when she made the decision to move to Houston and commit fully to Dr. Now's program, beginning a slow but steady return to mobility. With time, therapy, and support, she started building routines that gave her more control and helped her separate her identity from the body that had once defined her. After undergoing gastric bypass in 2015, Amber lost more than 400 pounds over the years that followed and became one of the show's most widely recognized transformations. During that same period, she left her relationship with Rowdy and continued developing a life beyond the reality TV spotlight. Today, she remains active on social media with over 300,000 Instagram followers, occasionally sharing updates while also protecting her privacy. Amber's journey shows how change can begin quietly, long before the physical transformation becomes visible. Pauline Potter. When Pauline Potter entered the program at 50 years old in 2015, she carried more than just the 670 pounds recorded on her chart. She arrived with a Guinness World Record attached to her name, officially recognized as the world's heaviest living woman back in 2011. Mobility was so limited that she rarely left her Sacramento home, forcing her teenage son to be her full-time caregiver. Nearly every part of her daily life depended on Dylan, and the burden had quietly turned him into a caretaker. Her relationship with Dr. Now was tense from the start. Pauline hoped to move quickly towards surgery, but she struggled to follow Dr. Now's program. These challenges continued through her 2015 treatment year. But little did Pauline know that her life was about to cross a line she couldn't come back from. What began as another day of pain took a far darker turn when Pauline developed a severe abdominal infection caused by an internal tear. By the time emergency crews arrived, she could barely speak, and every moment seemed to slip farther out of her control as she was rushed into the hospital. That medical crisis marked one of the most dangerous turning points of her journey. A hidden infection and a dangerous internal tear meant that she needed emergency surgery immediately if she had any chance of surviving. Recovery wasn't smooth. Pauline struggled with physical therapy, resisted movement, and leaned heavily on pain medications, even when Dr. Now urged her to reclaim her strength. Yet, slow shifts began to appear. Standing for longer stretches, walking short distances, eating healthy more consistently, and letting Dylan step back into his own independence. Multiple hospital stays placed her on a tightly controlled diet, allowing her to lose substantial weight. Over the next 2 years from 2015 to 2017, she lost nearly 700 pounds, dropping to the mid-300s. This eventually earned her approval for skin removal surgery in 2019. She took small jobs, tried new routines, and most meaningfully, allowed herself moments of being simply a mom again. Her social media posts in the early 2020s show continuous progress, a slimmer frame, and a tone far more helpful than the one she carried in Houston. Unfortunately, Pauline Potter died on November 27, 2025, at age 62, following medical complications after a car accident 11 months prior. Her son, Dylan, announced the sad news on her YouTube channel.
Unfortunately, my mom has passed away this past Thursday on Thanksgiving.
Joe Wexler. Before his episode even begins, Joe describes his life as a nightmare, one where every day feels heavier than the last. At 31 years old and nearly 800 pounds during his 2015 Season 3 episode, he was mostly confined to his bedroom in Johnson City, Tennessee. Meeting Dr. Now was the first real confrontation with the reality he'd been avoiding. Those early months were messy, with moments of progress followed by backsliding and difficult conversations with Dr. Now. But slowly, something began to shift. When he finally qualified for weight loss surgery that same year, it marked the beginning of a different kind of fight. Year 1 brought dramatic change. He lost over 200 pounds, started driving again for the first time in years, and began imagining a future that didn't revolve around survival. By 2016, he was flying on a plane, meeting someone special he'd only known online, and experiencing parts of life he once believed were impossible. But Joe's story also includes setbacks that remind viewers that progress isn't a straight line. His follow-up episode documents a series of falls that led to a painful vertebral fracture. Doctors intervened quickly, and after recovery, Joe was able to return to the gym and continue pushing towards skin removal surgery. That progress led to his first skin removal surgery in early 2016, which removed more than 30 pounds of excess skin from his abdomen and marked another turning point in regaining physical freedom. Life changes came quickly after. In August of 2016, Joe married the woman he'd met during his weight loss journey. He stepped into the role of stepfather and continued reducing his weight to enter the 300-pound range. But the years that followed brought challenges he didn't expect. The marriage became strained, and he found himself regaining some of the weight he had fought so hard to lose. The relationship ultimately ended around 2019, after 3 years of marriage. As of late 2025, reports indicate that Joe is alive, active on social media, and still associated with one of the larger long-term weight losses from his season. Several update pieces mention that he transitioned into work in the IT field. Some outlets also claim he found love again after his divorce and even remarried, though these reports remain unconfirmed by primary sources or official records. What is clear, however, is that Joe has worked hard to rebuild his life and keep his health on track. Laura Perez. Before cameras ever reached her doorstep, Laura Perez's life had already begun slipping out of her hands. At 41 years old and nearly 600 pounds, every breath felt heavier than the last. Her wheelchair became the center of her world, and her oxygen tank followed her like a shadow. By the time she met Dr. Now in 2015, Laura could feel her body weakening. Laura did what many patients hope for. She qualified for surgery, and her gastrectomy procedure was completed. But instead of becoming the breakthrough she needed, the procedure marked the beginning of one of the most dangerous chapters in her journey. A series of issues spiraled into a medical crisis, leaving her weaker than when she started. Then, pneumonia struck a devastating blow. When Laura finally emerged from the crisis, she was left facing a reality few patients imagine. She had to rebuild her progress almost from scratch. She had to relearn basic mobility. And in place of the structured program she once leaned on, she found herself navigating recovery largely on her own. But this is where her story took a remarkable turn. Instead of giving up, Laura pushed forward. She changed her eating patterns, pushed herself through home exercises, and kept going even when people doubted her. Over time, she lost more than 200 pounds. This progress was especially visible during her 2017 Where Are They Now follow-up episode, where she appeared at one of the lowest weights ever featured on the show. Laura's personal life shifted too. Her marriage to Joey unraveled, a strain highlighted in her 2017 update. She continued updating fans on Facebook through 2020, offering glimpses of her progress and her day-to-day life. But sadly, despite all of her progress, her health remained fragile after years of strain, surgeries, and untreated complications. And Laura passed away on November 17, 2021, at the age of 48. Her cause of death has never been publicly disclosed, and the family has kept details private. Charity Pierce. By the time Charity Pierce appeared on the show in 2015, doctors were already warning her that her body was running out of time. Weighing nearly 780 pounds at 39 years old during her Season 3 episode, she wasn't only battling immobility, she was fighting severe lymphedema, recurring infections, and pain that signaled her system was under constant strain. The turning point came not from a dramatic confrontation, but from the realization that medical intervention was the only path left for survival. Surgery wasn't framed as transformation. It was presented as a race to prevent organ failure, sepsis, or complications that could take her life suddenly. Even after approval, she faced grueling procedures. This included the removal of around 57 pounds of diseased tissue and excess skin, documented through her 2016 and 2017 Where Are They Now updates. Over the next 3 years, Charity lost more than 500 pounds. But as her recovery continued, the dynamic with her daughter grew more complicated. The strain didn't come from lack of love, but from the emotional weight of everything they had already gone through together. In December 2019, she revealed she had kidney cancer, and underwent kidney removal surgery in early 2020. Later reports mention ongoing medical struggles, and while online speculation has circulated, reliable outlets note that as of 2025, her current status remains unclear. Does anyone know what Charity's been up to over the last few years? If so, let us know in the comments below. Season 4. Nikki Webster. Before she became the first patient to open Season 4, Nikki Webster was already living in a private kind of silence. In the years leading up to her episode's January 2016 premiere, mornings in Little Rock, Arkansas began the same way, with joints aching from the strain of nearly 650 pounds, and a body that felt heavier than any day before. When she finally sat across from Dr. Now, his message was clear. Her heart, her lungs, her life itself were in danger. Losing weight wasn't optional. It was survival. After the gastric bypass, her progress was steady. She began walking longer distances, regained mobility, and even started looking after her brother Chris, who suffers from cerebral palsy. It wasn't until later, after she already lost a significant amount of weight, that she underwent skin removal surgery, a milestone she discussed during her 2017 Where Are They Now episode. But no one expected that this would become one of the hardest parts of her journey. After the surgery, she faced setbacks, including moments when she worried something had gone wrong during recovery and feared she might not make it through. But thankfully, she survived. She married her longtime partner Marcus in 2018 and now goes by her married name, Nikki Gray. And over time, Nikki lost more than 450 pounds, a transformation confirmed in updates as recent as 2023. She is currently running an online shop where she sells handmade clay pieces, while occasionally sharing updates on social media. Brittani Fulfer. When viewers first met Brittani Fulfer in January 2016, she was 32 years old and weighed over 600 pounds. At home in Oregon, every movement was painful and every errand had to be planned around limitations. Her husband Bill stood beside her with steady, quiet support. Her first consultation with Dr. Now marked the beginning of a long emotional fight. The episode captures her trembling through weigh-ins, second-guessing herself, and fighting waves of doubt. But slowly the wins started adding up. Each pound lost made the world a little bigger. By the time she qualified for weight loss surgery, Brittani had begun imagining a future that felt real. Her results were dramatic. She lost over 230 pounds in that first documented year. By 2018, she had lost well over 300 pounds, making her one of the show's most dramatic long-term transformations. She later underwent multiple skin removal surgeries, including procedures removing more than 27 pounds of excess skin. But her transformation wasn't only physical. Over time, she and Bill rebuilt their intimacy. Their relationship became one of the most celebrated elements of her storyline, not because it was perfect, but because they worked through the hard parts together. In the years since filming, Brittani has continued to evolve. She and Bill remained together according to public updates, finding joy in family life, becoming an aunt, and taking part in everyday activities she once thought she'd never experience. As of the most recent coverage in 2025, Brittani is alive, active, and continuing to balance her physical health with her emotional recovery. Milliken. On March 16, 2016, viewers met Milliken for the first time. What the cameras captured was a 26-year-old man confined to a single room in his family's California home. At nearly 1,000 pounds, Sean carried a weight heavier than any participant the show had ever seen, marking a tragic milestone for the program. His bond with his mother was close but complicated. She was his constant support, yet their routines made it difficult for him to become independent. During his first meetings in Houston, Dr. Now expressed concern not just about Sean's weight, but about the dynamic at home that made change nearly impossible. His gastric bypass surgery brought significant weight loss. However, Sean faced challenges that went far beyond food. The grief of losing his mother in 2017 became a turning point he wasn't prepared for, and depression made it harder to maintain the progress he'd fought for. After his mother passed away, Sean's life shifted in ways he wasn't emotionally or practically ready for. Living on his own for the first time, he no longer had the structure he relied on for meals, transportation, or medical follow-through. And the sudden absence of his only caregiver left him overwhelmed. Without consistent support, his weight began to rise again. His 2017-2018 follow-up coverage revealed a person trying to cope with grief and daily survival at the same time. Despite periods of improvement, Sean continued to struggle with consistency. Hospital stays helped temporarily, but each time he returned home, the weight came back. He lost around 400 pounds at one point, but later regained much of it while living on his own and coping with declining health. According to public records, Sean passed away on February 17, 2019, at the age of 29 due to complications from an infection. No further medical details were shared, and the show acknowledged his death with compassion, reflecting on how much he endured and how hard he tried. Sean continues to be a fan favorite and a recurring subject here on Living Large. For a deeper dive into Sean Milliken's story, scroll down to the video description for direct links. Lupe Samano. When Lupe Samano's episode opens, she is 39 years old and more than 640 pounds, lying in the same bed she had spent nearly a decade confined to. By the time her story aired in March 2016, life outside her San Bernardino window was still moving, but she couldn't move with it. When she finally made the dangerous trip to Houston, the urgency of her condition was clear. Dr. Now admitted her straight into the hospital, where a tightly monitored diet became her first real test. She was later approved for surgery after proving she could stay committed outside the hospital's structure. Once she underwent the operation, her world slowly began to expand. Her weight dropped steadily for the first time in years. She began envisioning a future that extended beyond her bedroom door. However, years of lying still had damaged Lupe's hips so severely that waking up to walk felt almost impossible. Progress came slowly, but her determination pushed her forward. Yet as her body began to heal, her personal life unraveled. While recovering in the hospital during this same period, she learned that Gilbert had been seeing other women. The strain became impossible to ignore, and Lupe eventually made the painful decision to leave. After leaving her marriage, Lupe eventually found comfort and stability with a new partner named Andrew, but their time together was short-lived. In 2019, Andrew passed away due to complications from kidney problems, a loss Lupe shared publicly on social media. Online, she continued sharing pieces of her journey with fans who rooted for her from afar. Sadly, in 2025, Lupe's journey came to an early end. Official summaries note her passing on September 12, 2025 at age 50, with few public details offered. And she wasn't alone. Dozens of patients from My 600-Pound Life fought with everything they had, lost incredible amounts of weight, and still couldn't escape the toll their bodies had already endured. If you want to understand the full scope of what these patients faced, check out our video on every patient who died on My 600-Pound Life. Would you like to see more Where Are They Now updates from later seasons of My 600-Pound Life? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found value in these stories, don't forget to like and subscribe to Living Large. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one, coming up right now.